So, like I said, our last presentation before the break is implementing a barcode and scanning inventory system for improved collection management. Your presenter is Taylor Wolford from North Carolina State University Archives. In this presentation, Taylor will discuss the ongoing efforts of NC State University Library's Special Collections Research Center to implement a barcoding and scanning system for inventory management through ArchivesSpace. In the past, departmental staff have collaborated on a project to apply barcodes to every container in the repository while standardizing and applying container profiles in ArchivesSpace. This presentation will give an overview of their progress on the project while discussing logistical issues in regards to barcoding their collections for future access. Taylor will also discuss NC State's vision for the project at its conclusion, such as using the space calculator tool in ArchivesSpace to improve their physical collection management capabilities. Thanks, Taylor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Wolford. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a special collections librarian at NC State University Libraries. Thank you for that long introduction. I realize now that I wrote that kind of a long, little, brief intro. So stay with me here. I know it's already in the morning, but I hope you find this as interesting as I did. For the past year, I have been project manager for implementing a barcode and scanning inventory system, and we are applying that to every container in our collection, of which there are thousands upon thousands. So it's a very big project. I'd like to also recognize our project contributors. So Hannah Chapman is now a collection management assistant at BYU, but when she was working for us, she was a graduate assistant, and this whole project is her brainchild. She came up with this, she implemented our workflows, and when she left, I sort of took it over, and we're now working off of everything she created, essentially. And this project would not have been able to be completed without our graduate assistants and our undergraduate assistants who are doing the bulk of the barcoding itself, as well as some of our staff members who are helping manage the project. So our project goals, first we wanted to implement a barcode system to manage our collections more effectively. So for context, we have technically 3 shelving facilities at NC State for our Special Collections Department, and that includes both University Archive records and Special Collection records. So we have the BookBot, which is as cool as it sounds. It's essentially a mechanical librarian shelving unit that we have at our fancy new library, and we store very little there, so we were a little bit less concerned about managing those collections. They're also less highly accessed on average. So we were more focused on our off-site shelving facility storage as well as our on-site shelving facility, which is in our library where our Special Collections reading room is located. So the plan was to essentially manually barcode every container we had in those 2 repositories and implement that into ArchivesSpace. Second goal was sort of because we were doing this barcode project simultaneously, we thought it'd be a good idea to conduct a pretty extensive shelf read. And as the students were going through and barcoding, they could notate any items that were missing or mislocated or potentially mislabeled in our collections. So for the past year, we've conducted this shelf read and worked on resolving any missing items if possible. And I say if possible because sometimes it's not, unfortunately, but that has been a really great benefit to us with our collection management policies as well. And then the last step was, our last goal was standardizing locations and container profiles in ArchivesSpace with the goal of eventually using a space and extent calculator in ArchivesSpace to be able to understand how much space we had left in our repositories and where that space could be located. Okay. So for our workflows, we have an ArchivesSpace manager. He's in charge of maintenance and management of our ArchivesSpace, and he was able to generate a spreadsheet that had a list of all containers in our repositories that don't have barcodes. Previously, we were very inconsistent in barcoding our materials. For some reason, someone decided one time to barcode a whole collection and then barcode other parts of a collection, and that's all we had really. So we needed to know what was barcoded and where those items were in our repositories. So then we would physically apply the barcodes to the containers and scan them into the spreadsheet that was generated by our ArchivesSpace manager. We could send him back this spreadsheet that he would then be able to bulk upload all of those unique barcode numbers into ArchivesSpace and apply them to the container that they were supposed to be applied to. And then our fourth part of the process was reviewing and resolving mysteries, which, as I said, could get quite complicated. And where we are at now is 5 and 6. So we're in the process of bulk adding container profiles to everything that we have in ArchivesSpace and all of the objects that have been barcoded so that we are able to use more space calculation tools in ArchivesSpace. And then lastly, general cleanup. So here is a little bit more in depth about how we are doing the barcode scanning. You can see on the right here, that's what a shelf looks like after we finished barcoding it. So we have our access services department is basically sending us sheets upon sheets of these barcodes with unique identifiers. They're the same barcodes that are applied to general circulation books. So it works perfectly in our system for what we need as well. We attach physically the barcodes to every container in our 2 main storage facilities, and then we are able to integrate those barcodes into ArchivesSpace, which is also fully integrated with our special collections request management system, which is really great, and I can talk about that a little bit more. So here is our working spreadsheet for barcode integration. As you can see, this was the report that was generated for us by our ArchivesSpace manager, and it includes information such as the collection, where it's physically located, which would be the range, the shelf, and the section, and satellite is our larger offsite shelving facility. And then column E, top container barcode, was a column that he created so that we could add essentially the barcode scans directly into the spreadsheet, and we could then send this to him for uploading. So it's a pretty easy process, fairly quick. Although a year does not sound quick, it was fairly quick for what we were doing. And then this is ideally what we like moving forward. As you can see, Phil Freelon's papers, really great architect who built some structures for the Smithsonian. We now have our current location, which we know and have verified is correct. We have our unique barcodes, and then we have our container profiles and how they are measured in the dimensions. This is our retrieval management system. It's called Circa. It's created in-house and fully integrated with ArchivesSpace. So this is sort of the other side of what you just saw in ArchivesSpace in terms of the Phil Freelon papers. So it includes the box and the barcode number. And we use this system to check materials in and out to our researchers so that we can keep track of who's requesting what and when. And now, instead of manually entering in what they've requested and checked in and out, we just scan it with the barcode, and it's been checked in, check it back in, or check it back out or in with the barcode scanner as well. So our desk students have really liked this. It's made their process a lot easier for facilitating access to the collections. And we've been able to basically fully integrate ArchivesSpace and our barcode scanning project into this interface. We also conducted, as I said, an extensive shelf read. So unfortunately, the more materials you get, the more likely it is that you could lose them, which is hard to say as an archivist, I know. But we have thousands upon thousands of boxes, folders, tubes, etc. So in a lot of cases, the shelf read did require extensive searching and guesswork. People frequently remove parts of a collection and put it into another part of the collection, but they don't delete the original ArchivesSpace record. Very common thing we came across, and that required us to sort of put our little detective caps on and be like, well, I don't think this is here anymore, and move on. We also created, as a part of the shelf read project, and by we, I mean mostly the graduate assistant students who did a lot of this work, a mysteries documentation that we shared with the entire departmental staff. So this includes every container type that we found that was missing or a mystery, and it also includes information such as the collection number and the box information and where it should have been but was not. Okay. So for updating container profiles, this is part of the project I dread the most and have been sort of avoiding. Primarily because our department, again, was very inconsistent in adding container profiles to anything ever. So we have been sort of trying to decide a systematic way of applying container profiles in a similar way to how we did with applying barcodes to all of our all of our containers. So we're toying with the option of either using bulk operations in top containers to bulk add top container profiles, or to use some of our reporting capabilities, like possibly generating another spreadsheet of all the containers that don't have container profiles in our repository and seeing if we can add them that way. So that's something that's still a work in progress. But like I said, it really is a huge goal of ours with this project, so that we can enable staff to better utilize extent and space calculators. As we are running out of room, it's more and more important to know where we have space left in our repositories. So I already showed this, but this is the ideal for us in terms of container profiles. I think the complications come less so with letter size boxes in your more standard size archival boxes, and more so with our oversized materials. And we have a significant amount of custom boxes in our repository that are created by our preservation lab. So that is going to require someone with a ruler or a yardstick physically measuring the materials. And again, that's part of why this process is going to take us a little bit longer. So current project status, side note, this is inaccurate. We've since barcoded thousands more containers, but when I made this 2 weeks ago, this is where we were at. So we've barcoded on the left-hand side, or I guess, yeah, that side over there. That's how many materials we have barcoded at our largest off-site shelving facility. So it's thousands, as you can see, 23,000 boxes, 7,100 flat folders, so on and so forth. It's a really, really impressive amount of stuff that we've done in this span of time. And unfortunately, as embarrassing as this is to say, we did have 600 mysteries or missing items, but I am happy to report we've solved all but 31. So our university archivist came into the room when I sent out that report, and he's like, "I can't believe it." And I was like, "Me neither." So that's really exciting for us, and I do think, like, moving forward, it's just a good idea to know what you know that you don't know where something is, at least. So next steps, we want to finish barcoding in our second storage facility, which, as I mentioned, is in our main library. And we'd also like to standardize and or create container profiles using potentially the merge feature, or bulk create container profiles with a project spreadsheet template that we've done. And we also need to measure and create container profiles for our custom boxes. Challenges and lessons learned. So this is definitely a team effort. We pretty much consistently have had 2 people barcoding every day for a year if they're working. And I also barcode in my spare time as much as possible. I know some of my colleagues have barcoded and tried to resolve mysteries as much as they possibly could. So it's definitely a team effort, and it does require working together for multiple long periods of time. And another part of this that hurts me to say is that not all mysteries can be resolved. There are just things that processors have done that, legacy materials and collections that we just can't solve what those mysteries are at this time. Isn't to say that they'll never be solved, but I'm willing to let that go for the time being. And then also institutional knowledge can be a great resource. So our university archivist has been there for 15 years, I think, and he is just a mecca of knowledge. He knows all. So he's been a great resource in helping us resolve a lot of these things. And lastly, this is my last huge point and emphasis with this project, is that processors, really anyone who works with collections, needs to be trained on this barcode system, both from the ArchivesSpace processing standpoint, but also the retrieval and management system standpoint. And they also need to understand that we're adding barcodes, and we are adding container profiles to everything now. I don't want, like, 5 years down the line somebody to be like, "Wow, they're really inconsistent with their barcodes," and we do this all over again. So my goal is that this becomes a part of our regular processing manual, a part of our processing workflows, and we never have to do this again. So that is where we are at right now, and thank you for listening. If anyone has any questions, I don't know if we have time, but hi.
We do have time. It's already in hand. Thank you, Taylor.
All right. Hello, my name is Patricia Nava. I'm from the University of Texas at Dallas, curator of aviation archives. So I see I'm on the right track. That is really very wonderful. I appreciate this, all your work and the presentation. Thank you for that. My question now is, do you barcode really every accession as well, or just the resources?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our process right now is that we provide access to everything that we accession immediately. So we don't have a backlog. All of our collections are minimally processed and readily available, which means we do have to barcode the accessions because people can request them completely unprocessed. And so for our retrieval and management system, we sort of need to know where those are going to be. We do apply barcodes essentially to everything that comes in now. Yes, yes.
I know it's not part of your presentation, but I'd like to know more about making things available as soon as they're a session, because that sounds terrifying.
Hi, Kevin Schlottman, Columbia University Rare Book Manuscript Library. Thank you, very inspiring. I saw some nice looking locations in there as well. Did you have to do location work before you could do this? Was that part of the setup for this project?
Yes, so that's another really fun aspect of the project I did not go into. We actually had to create space in our repository. A lot of our oversized boxes didn't fit where they were at, so we created new organizational spaces for those. But we also had to standardize our location profiles because in a lot of cases, a shelf would be 0, 1, and the shelf next to it would be just 1. And that bothered me, but it also was confusing for people who were typing in, range number, shelf number, and then drawer 1 versus 0, 1. It wouldn't always populate. So we had to simultaneously do the barcoding, the standardization of the locations, and the container profiles in a lot of cases to make sure that moving forward, everything was a lot easier to locate in ArchivesSpace.
Hi, Brianna McLaughlin from the Indiana University Libraries. And I was just wondering if you encountered any resistance from stakeholders for this project. I guess I ask because we have been trying to do a very similar project and have encountered resistance, to say the least.
Yeah, that's another great question. So I think we probably would have had more resistance if we were suggesting that all of these boxes and containers would be ingested into our general catalog, but we have our own retrieval and management system for maintaining collections. So really we only needed to be concerned about whether or not we could fully integrate our barcodes into Circa, which is how we send materials around campus. Other than that, we sort of operated on a silo and just did what we wanted. So, and I know that's not realistic. I know it's not. I mean, I'm sure a lot of places would have more of an issue with it, but we were able to explain the benefits very clearly to the director of the libraries, and he was fully supportive, so it was fairly easygoing, although I don't think they thought it was going to take as long as it did. So that's just something to consider.
Thanks. Yeah, and Circa is available, right, on GitHub if anyone wants to use that. And I will say, to you and Susanna, things taking a year in archives is light speed, so I don't know why they thought it took a long time.
Hi, Valerie Adonisio, Atlas Systems. This is just a comment to another comment. I found that getting your insurance risk assessors involved is a fun way to get over resistance. Our materials are worth a lot of money, and there is a business case to make in a different way that we're not used to making, that your control over your inventory represents an asset to your institution that has financial implications as well.
Thanks, Valerie. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you, Taylor. Yeah. All right. We're going to go ahead and move into our break. We're a couple minutes behind. So let's round up and say it's 10:20. We're going to take a 15-minute